Operating limitations. Objectives. After completing this section, you will get familiar with mass and center of gravity, airspeed limitations, power plant limitations, approved maneuvers, kinds of operation, fuel, limitation placards, and other limitations. Mass and center of gravity. The maximum takeoff mass of the DA-40NG is normally 1,280 kilograms. This can be increased to 1,310 kilograms if modification from mandatory design change advisory is installed. The maximum landing mass of the airplane is normally 1,216 kilograms. If modification from mandatory design change advisory related to large tires or rough terrain landing gear is installed, the maximum landing mass is increased to 1,280 kilograms. The maximum zero fuel mass is 1,200 kilograms, or 1,265 kilograms if the rough terrain landing gear is installed. The maximum load allowed is normally 30 kilograms. If the extended baggage compartment is installed, the maximum load is 45 kilograms. Warning. Exceeding the mass limits will lead to an overstressing of the airplane, as well as to a degradation of the flight characteristics and flight performance. Note. In some countries, the beginning of a flight is defined by starting the engine. In those countries, a maximum ramp mass of 4 kilograms above the maximum takeoff mass is approved. At the time of liftoff, the maximum permitted takeoff mass must not be exceeded. Note. The maximum zero fuel mass is the highest mass with empty fuel tanks. The reference datum plane used for calculating the center of gravity is a plane that is normal to the longitudinal axis of the airplane. It is located in front of the airplane, and is vertical if the longitudinal axis is leveled. The plane is placed 2.194 meters in front of the most forward point of the root rib, on the stub wing. For all flight conditions, the center of gravity limitations must be followed. The most forward allowed center of gravity location is 2.40 meters aft of the datum plane, for weights between 940 kilograms to 1,080 kilograms. For the maximum weight of 1,280 kilograms, the most forward allowed center of gravity location is 2.46 meters. If the maximum weight is increased to 1,310 kilograms, the most forward center of gravity is 2.469 meters. For weights between these values, a linear interpolation is used. The maximum permissible rearward center of gravity location is 2.53 meters aft of the datum plane. Warning. Exceeding the center of gravity limitations reduces the controllability and stability of the airplane. Airspeed limitations. The airplane operating maneuvering speed is as follows. 101 knots indicated airspeed for weights up to 1,080 kilograms. The VO is 108 knots indicated airspeed for weights between 1,080 kilograms and 1,180 kilograms. The VO is 113 knots indicated airspeed for weights above 1,180 kilograms. Do not fully or abruptly activate any control surfaces above these speeds, as this could lead to excessive loads on the airplane. The maximum structural cruising speed is equal to the design cruising speed, and has a value of 130 knots indicated airspeed. You may only exceed this speed in smooth air, and only with great caution. The maximum flaps extended speed is 98 knots indicated airspeed for landing, and 110 knots indicated airspeed for takeoff. Never exceed these speeds for the relative flap settings. The never exceed speed in smooth air is 172 knots indicated airspeed. You cannot exceed this speed in any condition. Markings for specific airspeed ranges can be found in the airspeed indicator. The white arc represents the operating range with flaps fully extended. The speeds are between 60 knots indicated airspeed to 98 knots indicated airspeed. The green arc represents the normal operating range of the airplane. This is between 66 knots indicated airspeed and 130 knots indicated airspeed. The yellow arc indicates the caution range. These speeds are only allowed in smooth air. The caution range is between 130 knots indicated airspeed and 172 knots indicated airspeed. The red line at 172 knots indicated airspeed indicates the never exceed speed. Power plant limitations. The DA40NG has an Austro engine installed. The E4A model. The maximum engine takeoff power is 123.5 kilowatts at 2,300 RPM. The maximum continuous power is 114 kilowatts at 2,100 RPM. The revolutions per minute limitations are given as maximum propeller RPM. For takeoff, the maximum propeller RPM is 2,300, and it can be kept for up to 5 minutes. The maximum continuous power RPM is 2,100 RPM. The maximum overspeed is 2,500 RPM, but it can be held only for up to 20 seconds. The minimum oil pressure at idle is 0.9 bar. The minimum oil pressure at maximum continuous conditions is 2.5 bar. The normal oil pressure range is 2.5 bar to 6.0 bar. The maximum oil pressure is 6.5 bar. The minimum oil temperature is minus 30 degrees Celsius. The normal oil temperature range is 50 degrees Celsius to 135 degrees Celsius. The maximum oil temperature is 140 degrees Celsius. The oil levels should be checked before the flight. The minimum oil quantity is 5.0 liters and the maximum is 7.0 liters. The maximum oil consumption is 0.1 liters per hour. The approved oil types are shown on the screen. Caution! Only engine oils conforming to MB 229.5 specification are approved by Austro Engine GmbH to be used for operation. Note: it is not recommended to mix different SAE grades. The engine propeller is produced by MT Propeller, and the model used is MTV 6R 190/69. The propeller diameter is 190 centimeters. The propeller pitch angle is between 14.5 degrees to 35 degrees. The minimum coolant temperature is minus 30 degrees Celsius at the engine startup. The minimum coolant temperature at full load is 60 degrees Celsius. The maximum coolant temperature is 105 degrees Celsius. The coolant freezing temperature is minus 36 degrees Celsius. The approved coolant is a mix of distilled water and cooler protection. The mixture ratio is 50:50 for a freezing point of minus 36 degrees Celsius. For a freezing point of minus 53 degrees Celsius, use a 40:60 ratio. Refer to the engine manufacturer's operation and maintenance manual for more details. The approved propeller gearbox oils are shown on the screen. Caution! If the coolant or gearbox oil level is low, the reason must be determined, and the problem must be corrected by authorized personnel. The maximum restart altitude is 16,400 feet pressure altitude for immediate restarts, and 10,000 feet pressure altitude for restarts within 2 minutes. Approved maneuvers. The airplane is certified in the normal category, according to JAR 23. The minimum number of crew is 1 person. When flying, the maximum number of occupants is 4 persons. For the normal category, approved maneuvers are as follows. All normal flight maneuvers are allowed. Stalling is permitted apart from dynamic stalling, which is prohibited. Lazy eights, chandelles, steep turns, and similar maneuvers are allowed, as long as the bank angle is not greater than 60 degrees. Caution! Aerobatics, spinning, and flight maneuvers with a bank angle of more than 60 degrees are not permitted in the normal category. Caution! Intentional negative G maneuvers are not permitted. A table of maximum structural load factors is shown on the screen. The maximum positive structural load is 3.8 at maneuvering speed, and never exceeds speed. Or 2.0 when flaps are in takeoff or landing position. The maximum negative structural load is minus 1.52 at maneuvering speed, and 0 at never exceeds speed, and with flaps in takeoff or landing position. Warning! Exceeding the maximum load factors will lead to an overstressing of the airplane. Kinds of operation. The following types of flights are approved if the national operational requirements are fulfilled and the appropriate equipment is installed. Daytime flights according to visual flight rules. Flights according to night visual flight rules. And flights according to instrument flight rules. Flights into icing conditions and thunderstorms are prohibited. IFR flights cannot be performed if the seal on the emergency switch is broken. Takeoff and landing are permitted on paved surfaces and unpaved surfaces. You can see the minimum operational, serviceable, equipment required by JAR 23, and for operating purposes on the screen. Requirements are also dependent on the flight route, and national operating rules may introduce additional requirements. Click on the category to see the requirements for the appropriate flight types. Note: many of the items of minimum equipment, listed in the table on the previous slides, are integrated in the G1000 NXI, if installed. Note: all engine systems and equipment must be functional prior to airplane takeoff. Any engine system or equipment failure must be corrected before the next flight. Fuel. Approved fuel grades are shown on the screen. Note: a minimum cetane number of 37, determined according to EN, ISO 5165, ASTM, D613 is recommended. Note: use only uncontaminated fuel from reliable sources. The following antimicrobial additives can be used. Kathon FP 1.5, with a maximum concentration of 100 parts per million. And BioBoard JF, with a maximum concentration of 270 parts per million, for initial treatment, and 135 parts per million thereafter. Mixing fuel additives is forbidden. Caution! In case of an unknown or an overdosage of the fuel additive, the fuel system must be purged until the dosage is within the permitted limits. Note: the specified additives are qualified for the operation with the certified fuel grades. To clean the fuel system of the airplane, a higher dosage of the specified additive is allowed, under consideration of the instructions of the additive supplier. During cleaning, the engine must not be operated. Note: the instructions of the fuel additive supplier must be followed. Prist High Flash is the permitted anti-icing fuel additive. The maximum allowed concentration is 1,500 parts per million. Caution! The use of PRIST high flash fuel additive is only permitted with Jet A, Jet A1, ASTM, D1655, and JP8, F34. You may have a standard, or a long-range tank, installed in your Diamond DA40NG. If you have a standard tank installed, the total quantity is 2 times 15 US gallons, 2 times 56.88 liters. The total amount of usable fuel is 2 times 14 US gallons, 2 times 53 liters. In the case a long-range tank is installed, the total fuel quantity is 2 times 20.5 US gallons, 2 times 77.6 liters. The total usable fuel is 2 times 19.5 US gallons, 2 times 73.8 liters. The maximum indicated fuel quantity is 14 US gallons, 53 liters, per tank. The maximum permissible difference between the left and right tank is 9 US gallons, 34 liters. Caution! If an indicator shows 14 US gallons, then 19.5 US gallons must be assumed for the calculation of the difference between right and left tank. Limitation placards. The operating maneuvering speed limitation placard can be found on the left of the instrument panel, below the engine switch. The autopilot system limitation placard can be found on the right of the instrument panel, next to the flaps position switch. The long-range tank placard can be found on the instrument panel, if the long-range tank is installed. The approved fuel warning placard can be found next to the 2 fuel filler necks. The essential bus warning placard can be found on the left of the instrument panel, next to the essential bus switch. The oil type placard can be found in the cowling, on the oil filler neck door. The emergency fuel valve placard can be found on the instrument panel on the emergency fuel valve. The alternate static placard can be found in the front of the cockpit, on the left side of the fuselage. The baggage tray placard can be found in the baggage compartment. The baggage extension placard can be found in the baggage compartment, if the extended baggage compartment is present. The baggage tube placard can be found in the baggage compartment, if the extended baggage compartment is present. The emergency exit placard can be found next to the door locking device. The no smoking placard can be found on the instrument panel. Other limitations. The maximum operating altitude is 16,400 feet pressure altitude. The airplane can only be used when its temperature before use is above -40 degrees Celsius. Make sure to use an external preheater to heat the engine and pilot compartment before operation, if the airplane temperature is below -20 degrees Celsius. Operation of the airplane is only allowed at temperatures below 20 degrees Celsius, if the fuel cooler inlet baffle is installed. Use of the fuel cooler inlet baffle is only allowed at these temperatures. The coolant radiator inlet baffle must be installed if the outside temperature at takeoff is less than -30 degrees Celsius. It cannot be installed, however, if the temperature is above 0 degrees Celsius. The airplane batteries must be preheated if the airplane has been exposed to temperatures below -30 degrees Celsius for an extended period of time. Takeoff with an empty main battery is forbidden for night VFR or IFR flights. If the next flight is planned to be a night VFR or an IFR flight, The use of an external power supply to start the engine is forbidden. In these cases, the main battery must be charged before flight. Do not lock the canopy and passenger door during airplane operation. The use of electronic equipment could lead to interference with the airplane's avionics. Therefore, do not use or switch on any electrical equipment that is not part of the airplane equipment. Examples of prohibited items are as follows: mobile phones, remote radio controls, CRT screens, mini disc in record mode, laptops, including laptops with CD-ROM drives, CD and mini disc players in replay mode, cassette players, and video cameras, are allowed. All equipment should be turned off for takeoff and landing. The use of portable electronic devices during low visibility approaches is also prohibited. Sun visors are only allowed to be used when cruising. Make sure to lock the visors in a fully upward position for all other flight phases. Summary. With this section, you got familiar with mass and center of gravity, airspeed limitations, power plant limitations, approved maneuvers, kinds of operation, fuel, limitation placards, and other limitations.